Good morning, Tunda, or good
Good
night.
morning, Nigel.
Oh, here we go again with the time zones. Live from Canada, we have Tunda here, and I'm Nigel, and I'm from the Netherlands. We asked ChatGPT to come up with a topic for today, and the topic ChatGPT gave us is the art of starting over. And the extra information is you could discuss the challenges, resilience, and unexpected beauty that comes with fresh starts, whether it's moving a new place, changing careers, or even small daily resets. It's a relatable theme that offers plenty of room for personal stories, advice, and insights on embracing change as part of the journey. Oh, here we are on our way to put that personal story part in the art of starting over. Um, well, my question to you is: do you have a recent example of something you started over, where you
Um, you sent this to me about 15 minutes ago, I believe,
we
and
prepared?
and I was thinking if there's really anything like starting over, though everybody always wish we could always press that button and then start over, but what does that really actually mean? Because let's say, for example, in a relationship, someone who has a boyfriend or a girlfriend and um, things were not going right and they want to go on their separate ways, and then you say you start over, start a new relationship with, or start dating to trying to find the next partner. That can be considered starting over. However, it's not really starting over. You still have the experience you've had with the previous person you were with, and most of the times we bring that experience into the new thing we want to go forward with. So it's really not starting over. Even if it's in career, for example, if you've been in a specific career for a very long time and maybe you got bored or you want to make a switch, or because the market or the labor force is changing and there is no more room for you and you want to make a switch to a different career. So, for example, actually, I was reading something on Quora yesterday, and someone said he is a software engineer and he doesn't want to do that anymore, and he was looking for an advice. And someone was making an advice that he's also on the same boat, and he's a software engineer and wants to stop doing um, that work, but he doesn't just want to make a switch in the same industry, like being a software engineer and then switch to DevOps or a project manager or a business analyst or something like that. It's still in the same industry. So he
Yeah.
said he wanted to start a restaurant, so which is totally different
Oh yeah.
things. So, and I was thinking to myself, yeah, but you still have that corporate experience. You have some experience that maybe very little, but you brought to running a restaurant. It's not like you wake up one day and and I always listen to these things people also say, like, if you were to push a button or wake up tomorrow and become a 10-year-old, but with the same experience you've had, what would you do different? But that is also not starting over. You have that experience, right? You have that
Yeah.
experience, but you're just
Yeah.
younger.
Yeah. So philosophically speaking, you kind of touch on the two separate ways, the two different ways of starting over. The one day is starting over something, but with all the experience you gained, whether you go back in time or you move on to a new relationship or a new career, you bring the knowledge you have. Because when you were discussing this about becoming a 10-year-old again, I had to think about this movie Groundhog Day, where the actor, it's a famous movie, where the actor starts over and over again, the same day, every day. And then
Hmm.
he starts to figure out there are more movies with this kind of theme, but they always, this one person, the main character, always gets to remember what happened the days before. So they don't really start over. They
Yeah.
get to try new things with the knowledge they had. So it's not really a complete start. And I think that if you would start back as a 10-year-old without having all the experience and knowledge that you had before, um, the outcome in theory could be exactly the same. So then the question is, why would you want to do that? Why wouldn't you want to take all the experience that you have now with you and then start over. But basically, then you're saying no one gets to start over except you because you get
Yeah.
to remember that you started over and the rest didn't. So that's a bit strange as well. But I think the topic that ChatGPT presented to us is the idea of um, starting over, like the person on Quora that doesn't want to be in software development is starting a restaurant, taking with all the experience the person has, and then starting a restaurant from that moment on. So I would assume that makes more sense than trying to
I think ChatGPT also picked that topic based on the words and sentences that we human use, like search online and all those things. And so, how do I search over? How do I hate my life? I want to start all over. I moved to. I don't like this city. I want to move to a new city and start all over again. I just broke up with my ex and I want to start all over again. So that buzzword is huge online. So
okay,
it's easy for it to just pick it up and use it.
makes sense.
And yeah, and it's not ChatGPT's fault. It's our fault. We are the ones using using it
Yeah,
um,
yeah, okay, it's a training
as we
data
speak.
thing,
Yeah.
obviously. So I think you're right. But if you look at starting over, then for me, from my perspective, you have more experience in starting over than I have because you were born in Africa, you moved to Asia, and now you are in Northern America to keep it the continent wise. Um, that for me feels like starting over, right? You start over a new life in a new place. I moved like 12 kilometers from where I was born, which for me was starting over, but it's all on the same continent. It's actually the same country in the same state. So even though I have my starting over moments, which I can share maybe later, but so my question for you is how was that for you? What do you experience or how do you approach it when making such a step?
To use the same lingo so everybody understands. So I will keep using starting over as
Yeah.
well. It's never easy starting over because you leave all your friends and family behind, and everything you were used to, you leave them behind, and you have to move to a new place. Even if it's just moving cities, it's never easy. You have to think of where you're going to live. Are you going to commute from A to B, which is a totally different experience from what you were used to? Meeting new people, understanding the culture of different places. Culture in different cities are in the same countries are different. Not to talk about cultures in different countries in the same continent or different countries in different continents. So it's a huge you will experience a lot of culture shock as you move, and it's about if you do these things. Luckily, luckily, I did all these things not out of desperation, not out of because I faced some issues or problems, and then I had to quickly move because out of danger or whatever. It's a decision that I made and took time to plan for it. So thankfully, that was my case. Maybe some other people had a different experience because there is war going on in their country and they have to uh, quickly move to a different country. That those are more extreme than my case. So I'm a bit lucky in that sense. So yeah, it's never easy. You have to try to find new friends, find new people to work with, find a way to probably repeat the same thing you used to do. People get homesick, right? And then you try to repeat the same thing you used to do in your previous location or places. So yeah, if you keep a positive mind, it's not going to be overwhelming. I've seen a lot of people who have moved to a different country where they had high expectations, and then their higher expectations were not met, so they get really depressed after moving, and then sometimes they end themselves or have to move back. Uh, a lot of cases like that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of cases where couples also move to a
Mm-hmm.
different country, and a lot of issues start coming up, and then they end up getting a divorce or separating and going down their separate ways. So it comes with a lot of challenges making that move. But if you are uh, consciously aware of the possible challenges that you might face based on maybe other people's experiences, you might try to find a way to avoid those issues for yourself.
Yeah, um I heard a very large amount of stories. I read a lot of stories about people moving, expats, or like you said, maybe refugees. And I think the reason why you move or you start over, to stick with that lingo, is also going to be part of the rate of success, because that ties into those expectations you just mentioned. So if you have certain expectations, like there won't be any bombs dropping on my home, it will be safe, um, then that's a low bar if you move to a country where this is not happening, right? So if you
Mhm.
expect just to be safe, then probably everything else is more like fine, because I don't have to worry about my life. While if you come from a place where you had everything, you had your friends, you had everything, and everything was fine, but you just crave for the adventure, and you're going to another country, and then suddenly the people don't talk to you, speak your language. One of the things I read a lot about people coming to the Netherlands is that people find it hard to make friends here. They say Dutch are so closed, and it's so hard to make friends. And then I see a whole discussion about how this is going, and then you see people expect to make friends, like they
Yeah,
just lay there on the pavement, and you go, "Hey, friend," and then there's a friend, and now we're friends. And yeah, well, maybe that doesn't really work like that in the Netherlands, but maybe it doesn't work like that anywhere, because you have to put in some effort to build a form of relationships. You have to go out there, and that is energy consuming. So you have a new job, possibly a new home. You have to figure out everything, and then you have to spend energy on making or building these relationships. I can imagine that's very hard, and that can be very upsetting, especially if it doesn't really work, or it takes a lot of time. While yeah, you had the expectation of this working out.
yeah.
I don't know.
Um, for me, in terms of expectations, I do not have a typical expectations that most people that move do have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say there's one thing that Warren Buffett said about marriages. He said, if you if you want your marriage to last long, the best way is to have zero expectations. So if you have zero expectations from each other, everything will be amazing. And I think that is very true because expectations always lead to disappointment every time. Um, so I did not expect anything to be special or in any sense. My main reason to move was this is a huge planet, and I do not want to, be in a specific location. Actually, at the first time I left Nigeria, I never wanted to leave. Right, I just wanted to. It wasn't in my imagination that I would live and work outside Nigeria. But since I left, my mindset kind of changed, and I just wanted to experience different culture, ethnicity, and different countries and see how beautiful this planet is and meet amazing people that are, and also possibly meet some horrible people also. So
Yeah.
it's a, it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
So for me, the I've had some even my first time when I traveled to Vietnam, for example, I had a few friends, and when there was a friend specifically that the first night he arrived, he was actually extremely sad and was like, why was he here? It looks like a dungeon, and he doesn't like it the first night. You've not even be it just him in the transport from the airport
Yeah,
to
yeah.
where he will be staying.
Oh
Just
yeah, yeah.
looking outside the window is already like depressed and doesn't like it. So he had some expectations, and the expectation
Mm,
was not met just a few minutes after landing. So those kind of things, I really don't have them. Um, but I just at this point in my life, I take things very simple, very lightly, and I look at um, most of the times I look at if I were single, I would not care much about a lot of things. But since I have a family, most of the things I look at is what how comfortable my family will be wherever I
mm,
move to or we move to, and that I put into consideration and plan on those kind of things
yeah.
because there is for everything there are consequences. There are both positive and negative consequences, no matter what you do. That I'm very aware of, and the negative consequences I try as much as possible to find them. I would say I'm a pessimist, so I really take my time to find uh, most things, every almost everything that could go wrong. Of course, you cannot catch everything. You cannot
No,
in any possible way, but uh,
but the upside
being a
is
pessimist,
if you expect the worst, it probably
yeah,
doesn't happen at the
yeah,
worst.
probably, and most of the times it doesn't happen, but
No.
planning for those things
Yeah, yeah, but
helps a lot.
and then you get like, oh, well, we're still not dead. Everything went
Yeah,
fine. I still have a place to stay, so that's very positive. But
yeah,
on that friend that arrived in Vietnam, I was disappointed. I noticed that a lot of people that if they start a new job, that within the first few days they're very disappointed about the new job because they were hired and then the HR and the recruitment and the new boss and everything that were so exciting and it's going to be great. And then they sit there and they just sit in some shitty office building with shitty people doing the same shitty things as their last job. So and I ask, how's it going? And what's your new job? I said, oh, it's terrible. I don't like it. I'm not sure if I want to do this. And what I learned over the last few decades is that you have to go through that phase. It's a phase. It's the phase of your expectations. You made this imaginary company where you are gonna have your imaginary dream job, and at the end you
hmm
just have to do things to make a living. So my advice is
yeah,
always uh, accept this for the first 2 weeks that it's gonna suck. The first 2 weeks is just gonna be shit, and then when you go through that, and it's a bit like your pessimistic view on prepare for the worst. After the 2 weeks, they get to settle, they learn new people, they start to understand how the business works, they start to see the fun parts, and then suddenly it's not that bad after all, right? But the first 2 weeks are always a bit hard because you know nothing and you feel really disconnected and you're still
yeah,
going through the letting go of your previous job, even though you wanted to go away. Probably you still miss maybe the people that were there, or you got used to a certain flow that's different, and then give it like this time. So this friend that went to Vietnam and that was very pessimistic on the first. Did he stay or did he go back?
no, he did not stay, but he stayed for 1 or 2 years.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's not
Yeah,
like
so
1 or 2 years.
yeah, that was well, he would have wasted a lot of money on his flight and everything, so it's a long way. But in terms of, I also saw a video of a lady in Canada. What she's Nigerian, and she came to Canada, and she's depressed and was crying online and saying uh, the country is quite boring. She doesn't have any friends. It's difficult to make any friends. She just goes to work and come back home, and she could not even speak to her neighbors, which is true. Uh,
Mhm.
if you compare that experience to what she's used to in Nigeria, In Nigeria, there is a saying that one person give birth to a baby, the community raised the baby.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live somewhere, all your neighbors will know you. All your neighbors will talk to you. All your neighbors will do everything with you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if your kid is misbehaving, your neighbors will discipline your kid on your behalf without even asking for your consent. So something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So for example, if you're going out and you have to walk like I don't know 10 minutes to the bus stop, on your way to your bus stop, almost every shops, every home, everybody you meet will greet you. So there's constant communication with random people
Yeah.
or some people that are on that street onto your bus stop. But then someone like that goes to a country like Canada with less population but bigger cities, and everybody is either extremely busy because their work is very busy. They have multiple shifts of work, and also they enjoy their privacy more, so they don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So in that situation, coming from an extremely open environment into an extremely closed environment, that can lead to depression. Most of the times, people say they want to go somewhere, but they want to bring the experience they have from their old place to the new place, which it's impossible.
Yeah.
You have to just blend to what is happening in your new place.
Okay. Well, I think that's an extreme form of starting over, but to make it a bit smaller, I guess. Some of the stuff that I felt like were for me starting over is, for example, when you have this pile of crap, I do doom piles, the piles of doom, all the stuff that you have, you just collect it on a pile, and then after a while, you have piles of crap. And I noticed that if I clean everything out, I arrange everything. This is just a tiny thing that um, it kind of works like starting over. Then like my in my garage, I have all my tools, and then like half a year ago, I arranged all my tools, and now if I put it back, I put it back on the place that I arranged it. So for me, it felt like I'm starting over, working with my own garage with my own tools, and then suddenly you have the mindset because you put in all the effort of making it organized, and now it feels like I owe it to myself to keep it organized, and I want to put it in the place I want it to be in, and it makes sense. And suddenly you are organizing your life or your tools in this case a little bit better. Um, and the funny thing is that it's about um, a psychological effect as well. I think, for example, Jordan Peterson is very famous for his take on people that have a
Making your
very
bed.
no, it's not about. He was not about making the bed. He also has the example of this guy that made a mess out of his life. He hasn't organized anything. All his stuff is in his room on the floor, and then he just goes into discussion. Can you clean out like one drawer of your cabinet? And then this guy said, no, it's too much stress, and I can't handle that. And then he gets him to clean out half of one drawer. That feels like a small step because what's a drawer or half a drawer? And then he does half the drawer, and that opens up the ability to do the rest of the drawer and to do all the drawers. Or he so tells about a person needing to clean out his home, and he drags his vacuum cleaner halfway through the living room and drops it there, and it sits there for like a while, and then he comes back to talk about it with Jordan Peterson, and he says, "Well, you put the vacuum cleaner halfway, right? So you're already there halfway.
Yeah.
So now next week, get it to across the room, and then maybe next week we plug it in." So the baby steps, he's just making starting over small, like no big expectations, but he's bringing back change into
Mhm.
such small steps. And well, somehow I think that whole idea, if it feels like it's too big, I have kids, and my kids make a mess out of their room, and I kind of use the same technique. When I want them to clean out their own room, I could go in there and do it with them, or but we've been through that a couple of times and they still make a mess out of the room, and now I want them to clean it themselves. And I don't know where to start. And then I pick up just this one thing and I say, "You start here. This is where you start. This is the first thing." And then they kind of take that over, and then they pick up the next thing. And they put it in the place where it should be. The laundry goes to the laundry basket, and if I have cups, it goes in the dishwasher, and then like in within 30 minutes, something that looks like it's impossible to fix, it's already done.
Yeah.
But those are different perspectives on starting over, because they start over with their room cleaned. Um, it's different than moving to a new continent and having to build your own social environment and missing out on a community. Like in Nigeria, it exists in a different way than in Canada, for example. I think, yeah, these are all, yeah,
I think
aspects
I
of.
also think starting over, we can also look at it in such a way that waking up every day is starting over.
Hmm.
So you get to do what you were unable to do yesterday. You get to do it again today. So if you failed to do something, so for example, if you're I don't know why I keep referencing dating and relationships, but
Hmm.
let's say you're let's say you're single and you're trying to talk to a girl and you were unsuccessful yesterday, and then you have another day today to try again,
Yeah.
and maybe go to a different bar, or go to a, a grocery store or whatever, or talk to someone at the bus stop, uh, something like that. You get to try something new every day. I do try that sometimes. I take a different route when I used to go to work.
Yeah.
So because one day I just woke up, I just realized every day I go to work on the same route. I could like um, I spent about 45 minutes from my home to my workplace
Mm-hmm.
driving my motorbike. Out of that 45 minutes, I usually lose like my what's it called? Is it consciousness?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that you are on autopilot, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
driving half of the time because I know the route, I know everything. So I just start my motorbike and go, and then before I know it, I'm at home or at work.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting, right? Because that's how the brain works.
yeah,
So everything that's the same gets basically thrown out. So your memory is not an endless machine of memorizing everything. It just memorizes things that are different. So that's probably
yeah,
where you're going. You take a different route.
yeah. It's also a reason why when you're drunk and drive, you can also always get home, even though you are tipsy. But
Well, I don't think we should encourage anyone to do that. Actually,
not
let's
not
keep it by
encouraging, but
a theory.
in theory, yeah, that's possible. But anyway, so um, I do that once in a while. I take a different route.
Hmm.
Before I leave home, I check on the map what route I can take to get to work or get back home. So I take a different route, try to get lost, and see what happens. So that is also trying to start over because I've been doing this all day. I take a different route to do something different in a day. So every day is starting over.
Yeah.
You can always someone you had a fight with, you have another chance to be friends again the next day. Someone you a task you
Yeah.
could not complete, you have another day to try to finish it. A room you could not clean yesterday, you have another day to clean it today. So it can always start something over every day.
Yeah, that's I think the opportunity way of looking at that. You woke up, which is a good thing. I think there are a lot of people that are encouraging you to be very grateful for the fact that you woke up, which feels like a natural thing. But if you imagine, for example, I'm 44 years old. Let's say I reach mid 70s as my age. That means I have 30 years, 30 times 365 days. 30
Mm.
times I can celebrate my birthday, 30 times I can celebrate Christmas. So after this year, I have 29 left. Then it starts to become a little bit more scary because that's not that much. If I count like 30 years times 365 days, that's going to be adding up to a big number. Oh, I've got thousands of days ahead of me. But if you go like, well, it's only 30 Christmases to go or 30 birthdays, that's
Mm.
not that much. And maybe I reach 85 and I get 10 extra. I don't know. Maybe I get 65 because I don't get to become 75. You don't know that. So then waking up on a new day and feeling grateful about that and seeing it as a new opportunity to do whatever you want to do or can do, I think that's positive. And keeping the expectations low is kind of, in this case, is kind of forcing you to make more out of the now, because if you only have like 30 or 20 Christmases ahead of you, you go like, well, this Christmas should be very good because I don't
Yeah.
know how many I'm going to get. So that makes
Well,
you
speaking of having 30 years left, 30 years is a really long time. Because if you look at your past 44 years, the first 10 years, I don't remember a lot in my first 10 years for some reason. So that is like you're not even aware you are alive, right?
mm-hmm.
And the the next 10 years from 11 to 20, you were, being told what to do and going to school, and you are not even trying to figure anything out. You're just following the process, right? And then in your 20s, you were pushed out to see the world and see how things work. Actually, life actually begins in your 20s. Because you now can make decisions. You can try to you experience what failure is. You experience what success is. You experience the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
Basically, most of the things we do when we were young, the consequences were minimal because we had parents, we had roof over our heads, we had uh,
Yeah.
food to eat that came from somebody else, like our parents or guardians. But once you're alone, you experience life as it is. So life begins at 20. So you've actually spent 20 years, not 40, 24 years, not in my own
Yeah.
explanation.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I.
And the remaining 30 years, right? You're going to retire. You're going to get weaker. So things that you can do very quickly now is going to get slower for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a really, really long time if you
Well,
think about it.
I hope I can perceive it as a very long time. One of the things I sometimes struggle with about starting over, I kind of wonder where the last 12 years or so, since my 30s, um, went. And that has to do with the fact that as soon as you start caring for your children, your focus on your life switches from you to them. Because then you have to spend a lot of time and energy on taking care of your children. And somehow I I noticed that this is a very fulfilling time because I now have two children, two teenagers basically. But I also noticed that the last decade it's just slipped through my fingers because it just went so quickly. And
Yeah.
and my worry is that if it goes in this pace, then I'm gonna be like 70 without blinking my eyes. Next week we'll be sitting here doing the podcast, and we'll be 30 years along along the road. And so that's why the taking a different route thing resonates with me. That I know that for the mind to have a perception that time is going slower, you need different experiences. So I try to engage in newer experiences. On the other hand, it's also it costs more energy to do that. And when you get older, you get less energy. It's not something I'm bothered with right
Mhm.
now, but I know it is. So what you say, I noticed that with people that are getting with my parents, um, the appetite to do all that crazy shit is lower because you're going
Yeah.
to be a little bit more vulnerable. you're gonna be a lot more tired when you do that. So this circle of life, I envy people that they don't have to think about this because they just live their life and then it is
Exactly.
what it
People
is.
that don't think at all,
No.
they have the best of life.
Yeah, I think it's on your
But
shirt
for
even. Did you have? I saw that when we talked at the beginning. What's on your shirt? Think
what does it say
less.
actually?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
feel
think
more
less,
actually. Oh yeah.
feel more.
Here we go. So and
I'm the
it's
opposite of that.
yeah. You like to overthink in a pessimistic way or
Yeah.
yeah. Well, so in to a certain extent, when I do have the opportunities to start over, I try to indeed think less and feel more, to be more perceptive of what is going on, to have less of a feeling that life is slipping, to at least be there when I'm alive, and indeed be happy that I woke up. Um, it's not like a lot of people in my surroundings have passed, but it did happen. I lost some friends, I lost family, and you do start to realize that life could unexpectedly end sooner than you anticipate. So on average, people in the Netherlands become like 82 or 83 years old, which is for me like a little under 40 years to go, which is in good health a blessing. But I also know that 1 out of 5 doesn't reach the retirement age, which is 67 right now. So
Mhm.
20% of people are dead before uh, that age. Um, yeah, so statistics don't really help make you feel better. It just makes you realize there's only one thing to do, and that's enjoy the moment.
Yeah,
And
enjoy the
indeed,
moment.
to go back to that topic of starting over, if you do have something that's bothering you, if you don't like it, make your own starting over moment out of it by trying to approach it differently. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
You get a chance, and like I mentioned, you get a chance every day to do things differently. And also there's a popular phrase that they say time heals everything, right?
hmm.
If something great is happening to you, it's just for a period of time. If something bad is happening to you, it's also for a period of time. So if you're experiencing something that you think you will need a change, you need to
Yeah,
start over, you can always start, and in time you will be in a different place that you probably did not imagine or probably imagined yourself to be in. So starting over is also about time. If you think it's a huge step to start over, um, if you start, also there's something we say in my culture: something you don't start, you don't finish, right? So
yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
start something, you can always finish it.
Yeah,
But if you never start, you can never finish.
it's a bit of the thing I had printed on my sport. So my business partner and I had our shirts for working out printed with our logo, and our trainer asked, "Do you want anything else on it?" And I said, "Yes, I want to have showing up is half of the work on that shirt. So every time I put it on, I remember myself how bad I feel or how terrible the weather is. It doesn't matter because if I show up, I already did half of the work because I
Yeah,
want to stay as fit as I can. So working out for me is not something that comes natural or which I profoundly like, but it's something I put the effort in for me, and that means I need to show up. And that's the same thing about yeah everything you don't start, you will never end, or yeah
yeah.
you won't
Uh,
do it.
there's a they also say you miss every shot you don't take. I think that's the dating saying, right? Yeah, that's for dating. You miss every shot you don't take.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
hope so.
yeah,
And
more like
but that's the about the that has to do with fear also. That a lot of opportunity you don't take because you're afraid of the failure that might happen.
yeah,
And while the funny thing is that what you fear happens because of the fear, because you don't take the shot and you failed because you didn't start. So that's something I try to put in my mindset, because that's also something that didn't come natural. That I would be risk averse if I would rather stay in something safe and secure, which didn't really like. And now I go like, well, no, I will step out of that comfort zone and expose myself to the possibility of failure, and then we'll see what happens. And the funny part is, you never completely fail. You sometimes learn, and that's basically
Well,
what
you
happens
learn
most.
every time, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
So I was a bit reluctant about this topic, because, but I think we've managed to get a interesting thing out of it.
yeah, it got interesting. Yeah.
And now I feel like I gonna use this new knowledge more often to start things over. See if I can do a better job than I did.
Well, sometimes maybe you don't need to start anything over. Just continue.
Oh, there was one thing you said about the Warren Buffett quote, which really it struck with me about the relationships, and that's about not really starting stuff over, but also about letting go. And it's something that also came back in a series I'm watching about. It's called Shrinking. It's on the Apple TV network streaming service thing, and one of the main character is married to a husband, and he's called Derek. And Derek is a very laid back guy. And in the last episode I was watching, he just said, the reason why I have a successful marriage is because I'm just not going to engage in everything that's going on. I'm just going to let it go, because I chose her. I know who she is. And I'm just going to wave it off. And so his wife is one of the characters that's a bit complicated, difficult. She sometimes has a very strong opinion, and you quite often see him go around like, okay, and he just let it slide, and he just says, I pick my fight, so everything that's not worth it, I just let go. And
Yeah.
and it's very cool to see this character, because I really resonate with that. If you make this choice to not start over, for example, in your relationship, and then Warren Buffett says, well, having the low expectations. For me, that's him. This person, this character, Derek, is doing exactly that. And I really like that, because
Yeah, it's also very difficult to in terms of letting things go. It's quite difficult. An example I have is putting my son in daycare. So when I was uh, I'm someone who takes nutrition very important. So there's no sugar in my house. There's we eat mostly fresh food and cooked food and everything. So I was really worried what they will be feeding my kid during the time he will be spending at the daycare. And I was discussing with the 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 daycare owner and looking at the menu of the food they serve, which was also very good. And I was also checking the stuff they buy, like the milk, and trying to check the label and the content and saying, I don't want this, I don't want that, and blah, blah, blah. And then uh, I got to a realization that, okay, so for the fact that I'm letting my son stay at this institution in care of someone new, I should trust them to do their job. Probably just give my opinion, like, okay, this is what I want them to do or not do, but the rest I should just let them do it and give them some trust, which is very difficult to do. But it took me about a week to let it go, and of course, when my son came home every day and seeing that it's okay, it's not asking for something that I would not give him at home, right? Like asking for something
yeah,
sugary or whatever.
okay,
So I was okay. That also gives some confidence. Which, and I also notice something like that with my wife. For example, at the weekend I was alone with my son, taking care of him, and he was not at home. And when she came back, she was asking what did he eat, and I said, he had food. So what food did I give him? I said, why do you care so much? Said, oh well, I need to know so I can know what to give him next. I said, just give him whatever you have to give him. And if he takes it, he
Mm.
takes it. If he doesn't take it, he doesn't take it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I fed him earlier. What
No.
matters is what he eats from now on, right?
And
So
being a dad from two teenagers, I can tell you this is a fight you won't win. They will start getting food, not now, but now you can take care of him. Just be happy with that. But they will be able to get food outside of your control. They will
of course,
they will stuff themselves with candy and all kinds of crap. And then your task changes from being the caretaker that cooks the food to being the person that tries to explain to them what taking that food will do with them and why they should learn to control
to avoid
themselves
it.
or
Yeah.
or avoid it. But they're not going to avoid it because everyone, all the kids that like candy, chances are that they will have an unhealthy relationship with food if you just disallow them to do it. So you'll have to teach them that there is a world of bad food and there is many good food. And how will they make choices in the future? And they'll have to go through a phase of making the bad choices to learn to make the good choices, right? So
Mhm.
we're not disallowing them to eat that stuff. We're trying to educate them and trying to learn them they can put a break on it and they can, well, luckily one of my kids doesn't overeat and the other kid doesn't really have a natural way of saying, well, I'm full, I'm going to stop eating. If he has a limited amount of food, he will eat until, yeah, it comes out naturally. So he will overeat. So we need to learn him how to feel when he's full and to know when he's full. And also the relationship between food intake and the building blocks and the fact that you need energy to be active, but you can also eat too much, so you would gain weight and stuff like that. It's not to scare them or to discourage them, but just to try to teach them something that I wasn't learned when I had that age, because it was not an issue. There was
Yeah.
not an abundance of food when I grew up. It was harder to get. You had limited resourcing, so you couldn't always get it. And when I was at home, the amount of food that was available was also limited. So it was harder to to go there. Right? It was natural boundaries, and the natural boundaries are gone because the kids to bring all kind of crap to school, like especially my daughters in grade school.
Yeah. I have the same idea when he grows older, I will try to educate him
Yeah,
on various things, and especially with relationship with food, because I wouldn't be there in his school or when he's playing some sport, hanging out with
no,
friends. He'll be introduced to what we don't have at home, what we don't eat at home,
yeah,
what I don't want him to eat. But I will try to educate him on what is good and what is bad, and he can find a way to take it in a moderate amount,
yeah.
if at all he wants to take it.
Yeah, well, that's the it's hard. The first, I mean, we never went with our kids to McDonald's, for example, and then my parents, so their grandparents, they went to McDonald's one day, and they had a Happy Meal and they got a toy and they got the crappy food and everything, and they loved it. They kept talking about McDonald's, and every time we drove on the highway and we saw the sign with the two golden arcs, they get, oh, okay, we go to the McDonald's. Oh, for fuck's sake! So now, like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, especially my son, he still likes to go there, and then we get some McDonald's food. But I must say, there was a period where he was very focused on that. But now, if he can choose. He doesn't often chooses McDonald's. So, but that's the
Mm.
other thing. If you say, well, okay, it's your birthday or whatever, and you get to choose what you want to eat. Yeah, if they say McDonald's, what are you gonna say? No, you can choose anything except McDonald's, right? So
Yeah,
then you end up doing that anyway. But I must say he doesn't. So maybe there's hope. But no, it's that's the hard part. And for my daughter's part in middle school, she goes away in the morning on her bike to school, and then I don't know what she does. I know she has limited financial resourcing, but I do know that she has friends with more extensive financial resourcing, so they can get whatever they want. So maybe, yeah, she gets back somewhere after school, and what happens in the meanwhile, you don't really know. So
Yeah,
the
you don't
amount
know.
of
You cannot control it.
no, no, we can only discuss it. And, I think it's fine, but yeah, just a sidestep on the phases of having complete control of what happens to. You can just try to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah,
But all right, let's wrap it up for today.
yeah.
And well, thanks for this, and we'll talk next week.
Thanks for discussing.
Absolutely. All
All
right.
right.
Bye bye.
Bye.